Have you ever felt like the world discarded you, only for something impossible to notice you instead? Because this story begins with an old woman no one wanted, and ends with a message that could only be meant for her. Before we begin, take a second to like this video. It helps this story reach people who might need it more than we realize. And if you enjoy emotional mysteries like this one, subscribe now so you don't miss the next story. Now listen closely. When 67-year-old Carol Bennett was evicted and found shelter in an abandoned daycare center, she thought the scattered toys were just remnants of children who'd played there years ago. The eviction notice was printed on thin paper, but it felt heavier than anything she'd ever held. 35 years teaching special education, and now at 67, with Parkinson's making her hands tremble, she was being removed from the only home she'd known. But on her third morning in that daycare, she woke to find the toys arranged in patterns. Alphabet blocks spelling words, toy cars forming arrows, dolls positioned to point at specific locations. The messages made no sense to anyone else, but to Carol, they were crystal clear. They were written in a communication system she'd invented 40 years ago for her nonverbal autistic daughter who died at age 8. A system no one else in the world knew. And the toys were spelling out a message: Mama danger, basement, help Emma. Stay until the end, because what Carol found in that basement wasn't just impossible. It revealed that her daughter had never stopped trying to reach her and had been leaving messages for 40 years that no one could read until now. Carol Bennett had been a special education teacher for 35 years before Parkinson's forced early retirement. Her pension barely covered rent. When medical expenses mounted, she fell behind. At 67, with trembling hands, she was evicted. She spent 2 nights in her car before remembering the old Sunshine Daycare on Maple Street, closed 15 years ago. Carol had brought her daughter Emma there in the early 1980s. Emma. Carol hadn't let herself think about Emma in years. Her beautiful girl who stopped speaking at age 2, retreating into her own world. Severe autism, nonverbal. But Carol had found a way in. A communication system using toys. Specific arrangements Emma could understand. Alphabet blocks in patterns, cars in formations, dolls positioned in certain ways. Their secret language. Emma died at 8 during a seizure. Sudden, unexpected death in epilepsy. Carol blamed herself every day since. The front door was boarded, but a back window yielded to pressure. Carol climbed through into what had been the main playroom. Moonlight filtered through dirty windows, illuminating a space frozen in time. Toys were scattered everywhere. Blocks, cars, dolls, stuffed animals. Exactly as they'd been left when the daycare closed. The place should have felt eerie. Instead, it felt quiet. Safe. Something about the silence felt protective, like being wrapped in an old blanket. Carol found the room that had been Emma's favorite. The quiet corner with the soft rug and the toy shelves. She chose that spot deliberately, even though she couldn't explain why. She set up her sleeping bag there, surrounded by toys that Emma might have touched decades ago. That night, she slept wrapped in her coat, using her bag as a pillow. And for the first time since the eviction, she dreamed. She dreamed of Emma at 5 years old, sitting on the floor, lining up her toys with intense focus. Emma believed toys had feelings. She used to whisper to them, rearranging them over and over until they were just right. Margaret used to watch her, marveling at the precision, the intentionality. She cried herself to sleep, overwhelmed by memories she'd tried to bury for 40 years. She woke at dawn to find the toys had moved. Carol sat up slowly, her Parkinson's making the movement shaky, joints aching from sleeping on the floor. And then she froze. The toys. They weren't scattered like the night before. They were lined up. Perfectly. Blocks stacked neatly in ascending order. Dolls seated shoulder to shoulder against the wall, toy animals facing the same direction, as if watching something. Carol stood, heart pounding in her chest. She was alone. She knew that. The daycare had been silent all night. She hadn't touched them. Her trembling hands couldn't have arranged blocks with such precision even if she'd tried. "Must have been the wind," she whispered, though the windows were closed and sealed with years of paint and grime. She ignored it. That day, She searched for food in dumpsters behind restaurants, returned by evening with a stale sandwich and a bottle of water, and slept again in the same classroom. Her body ached. Her medication was running out. But something about this place made her want to stay. But when she woke the second morning, the toys had moved again. This time they formed a shape, a circle, perfect and intentional, as if invisible hands had spent the night arranging each piece with care. The dolls sat evenly spaced around the perimeter, the blocks filled in the gaps. In the center was a single toy, a small stuffed rabbit with one button eye missing. Emma's favorite. Carol recognized it instantly, even after 40 years. Carol felt a chill crawl up her spine. She backed away, breathing shallow, her Parkinson's tremor intensifying with fear. That night, she almost left. She stood at the broken window, bag in hand, ready to climb back out into the cold streets. But she didn't. Something told her to stay. A pull she couldn't explain, as if leaving would mean abandoning something precious. Before we go further, comment below. What would you do in her place? Would you run, or would you stay? On the third morning, the message appeared. Plastic letters from an old alphabet set were placed carefully on the floor, arranged with the same precision she'd taught Emma all those years ago. They spelled one word: Mama. Carol collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face. No one else had ever called her that, not since Emma died. Her daughter had been the only one who used that word, drawn out and warm, like a song only they shared. Not mom or mother, always mama, spoken with such love it made Carol's heart ache even now. Carol touched the letters with trembling fingers, her Parkinson's making her hand shake against the plastic. "This isn't possible," she whispered. But even as she said it, she knew. She knew these patterns, she knew this language. This was Emma's way of speaking. The next morning brought more. Blocks spelled, Mama here. Cars formed the happy pattern, 3 in a row, facing forward, wheels aligned perfectly. It was the formation Emma used when Carol came home from work, her way of saying she'd missed her mother and was glad she was back. Carol spent that day in the daycare, examining every toy, every room, searching for some rational explanation, even though her heart knew there wasn't one. She found Emma's name written in crayon on a wall in the bathroom, faded but still visible after 40 years. She found a cubby with a construction paper flower Emma had made, the edges brown with age but still intact, still carefully folded. She held it to her chest and wept. That night, Carol stayed awake, watching the toys, afraid to blink, afraid they would move and she'd miss seeing how. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the same time Emma had died all those years ago, she heard it. A soft sound like blocks being moved, like small hands arranging pieces with care. She turned on her flashlight with shaking hands. The blocks were moving, not floating, not flying through the air like some movie effect, just shifting position, one at a time, sliding across the floor as if invisible hands were carefully, lovingly arranging them. Carol watched, transfixed, unable to breathe, as they spelled out, "Mama, miss you." "I miss you too, baby," Carol whispered, tears streaming down her face, her voice breaking. "I've missed you every day for 40 years, every single day." The cars began moving next, forming the question pattern, then spelling with blocks. "Mama sad, why?" "Because I lost you," Carol said. "Because I couldn't save you." The dolls shifted, the blocks rearranged. Not Mama fault. If this is affecting you the way it affected Carol, please hit that like button and subscribe. This story goes places you won't expect. Over the next week, Carol communicated with Emma every night using the toy system. Emma told her she'd been trying to reach Carol for years but couldn't, until Carol came here, where Emma had been happiest. Emma told her she wasn't scared, wasn't in pain, that Carol had done everything possible. Then Emma spelled, "Mama danger basement, help Emma." Carol found tools and broke the basement padlock. The stairs creaked as she descended. At the bottom, a small room built into the corner, a door with a lock on the outside, the kind that keeps someone in. Inside, a mattress, old food wrappers, empty bottles. On the wall, written in crayon, "Help me please, I want my mama." Underneath, dozens of names, children's names, dates, the most recent from 2008. Carol called the police. The investigation revealed horror. Daycare owner Martin Prescott had used the basement to hide abducted children, one every few years between 1995 and 2008. 7 children whose names were on the wall had all been found eventually, miles away, traumatized, unable to explain where they'd been held. Prescott died in 2011, taking his secrets with him. But Emma had known. The investigators found drawings Emma had made, pictures of the basement door, crying faces, children. Carol had kept them at home, never understanding what Emma was trying to say. "She was trying to tell you," the detective said. "She knew something was wrong." Emma's final message came that night. Carol was alone in the daycare. They'd given her a few more days to find housing before boarding it up permanently as a crime scene. The blocks arranged themselves one last time. "Mama did it, help them love you goodbye." "Goodbye, baby," Carol whispered. "Thank you for never giving up. Thank you for bringing me here." The cars formed the love pattern. The dolls arranged into peace. Then everything went still. Carol felt a shift in the air, a lightness, as if something that had been waiting a very long time had finally let go. The investigation expanded. They reopened cold cases, found evidence linking Prescott to the abductions, contacted families who'd waited decades for answers. Carol's story made news, the homeless woman who'd stumbled onto a cold case. They didn't mention the toys or messages. Carol kept that sacred. A victims' advocacy organization helped Carol find housing. The families of the 7 children started a fund, raising enough to cover Carol's rent and medical expenses for life. "Your daughter saved our children," one mother told Carol. "Even after she was gone, she was still protecting kids." Carol is 69 now. Her Parkinson's has progressed, but she's comfortable, cared for. She keeps Emma's photo on her nightstand. Her beautiful girl with the faraway eyes. She never went back. They demolished the daycare a year later. But Carol asked for the toys, the blocks, cars, and dolls that spelled Emma's messages. They're on a shelf in her apartment now. Sometimes, on difficult nights, the blocks shift slightly, just enough to spell, "Mama love. I love you too, Emma," she says, "always, forever." If Carol's story moved you, please like this video and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to know that love doesn't end, that connections persist, that sometimes the greatest messages come from the voices we think we've lost. Leave a comment. Do you believe in signs from loved ones who've passed? Thank you for watching. And remember that sometimes losing everything puts us exactly where we need to be to discover what matters most. Sometimes abandoned places hold the most important truths. And sometimes the children we couldn't save find ways to save others, reaching across impossible distances to remind us that love never dies.